Some people are like clouds. At first they seem harmless, even beautiful. They drift into your life softly. They bring shade when the sun feels too intense. They make the sky look interesting. But not all clouds bring rain that nourishes. Some just linger, heavy, gray, and suffocating. And if you're not careful, you can spend your entire life under a sky that was never meant to stay dark. Because here's the truth most people don't want to say out loud. Some people don't add to your life, they drain it. They don't strengthen your peace, they disturb it. They don't sharpen your purpose, they confuse it. And yet we hold on. We hold on because of history. We hold on because of familiarity. We hold on because letting go feels like loss. But what if holding on is the real loss? What if the very thing you're trying to preserve is the thing that's preventing you from growing? There are relationships that feel like assignments, and there are relationships that feel like weights. And wisdom is learning the difference. Some people only show up when the sky is already cloudy. They don't bring light, they magnify darkness. They remind you of your past but never speak to your future. They rehearse your failures but never encourage your growth. Every conversation leaves you a little more tired, a little more uncertain, a little less like yourself. And you start to normalize it. You tell yourself, that's just how they are. You convince yourself, I can handle it. You minimize what your spirit is trying to warn you about. But your soul keeps records that your mind tries to ignore. And deep down, you know, this isn't healthy. Not every relationship is meant to be permanent. Some people are seasonal. They were meant to walk with you for a moment, not for a lifetime. But we struggle with that because we think letting go means failure. We think distance means disloyalty. We think protecting our peace means we're being selfish. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is create space. Space to breathe. Space to think clearly again. Space to hear your own thoughts without interference. Space to reconnect with who you are without the noise of who they expect you to be. Because clarity does not come in crowded emotional environments. It comes when the sky clears. Let's be honest for a moment. You can't grow in an environment where you're constantly being diminished. You can't heal in a place that keeps reopening your wounds. You can't become who you're called to be while staying connected to people who are committed to who you used to be. Some people are comfortable with your broken version because it makes them feel secure. But the moment you start healing, the moment you start setting boundaries, the moment you start changing, they get uncomfortable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're no longer functioning in a way that benefits them. And that's when you have to make a decision. Do I shrink to keep this relationship, or do I grow, even if it means outgrowing them? Because growth will cost you. It will cost you conversations. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you connections that once felt essential. But what it gives you in return is freedom. Freedom to be authentic. Freedom to pursue purpose without distraction. Freedom to wake up without emotional heaviness. Freedom to experience joy again, real joy, not forced smiles. Because joy cannot thrive under constant emotional pressure. It needs space. It needs light. It needs clear skies. And here's the beautiful part. When you release what weighs you down, you make room for what lifts you up. You start attracting people who speak life into you. People who celebrate your growth instead of resisting it. People who challenge you, but in a way that builds you, not breaks you. These are the people who bring warmth. They don't compete with your light. They reflect it. They don't drain your energy. They multiply it. They don't make you question your worth. They remind you of it. But you won't experience that if your life is overcrowded with clouds. You have to be willing to let some things drift away. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with grace. Because not every release has to be dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's choosing not to engage. Sometimes it's creating distance without explanation. Sometimes it's simply deciding, I can't carry this anymore. And that's okay. Because peace is not something you stumble into. It's something you protect. Every boundary you set, every unhealthy tie you release, every difficult decision you make for your well-being, you are clearing your sky. And when the sky clears, everything changes. You think clearer. You breathe deeper. You move with confidence again. The things that once felt overwhelming start to feel manageable. The voice that was once drowned out starts to become strong again. And for the first time in a long time, you feel like yourself. Let me remind you of something. You were never created to live under constant heaviness. You were never designed to carry relationships that crush your spirit. You were never meant to dim your light just to make others comfortable. You were made for clarity. You were made for peace. You were made for joy. So if there are clouds in your life right now, clouds of negativity, clouds of manipulation, clouds of constant criticism, you don't have to fight them. You don't have to control them. You just have to stop holding on to them. Let them pass. Because the moment you release what no longer belongs in your life, you'll start to see something you haven't seen in a while. Sunlight, warmth, hope, possibility, and you'll realize something powerful. The brightness was always there. It was just hidden behind what you refused to let go of. So choose clarity. Choose peace. Choose growth. Choose the courage to release what dims your light, and the wisdom to embrace what helps you shine. Because after every cloud, there are always clear skies, and clear skies change everything.